Hi, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this graphic from scratch. So let's begin with a brand new document. We're going to use this star tool over here. Now the star is in the shape tool, and as you click on that, it's located right above the pencil, and it may have one of these other shapes in it. We're going to use the star tool. Now when you click on the star tool, you get these different options. The sides tell you how many sides you want in your star. Let's just show you this. Let's change this to 5 and I'll show you what the 5 does. Now indent is 10%. So when you make this star, you can see that it has 5 points and the indent is 10%, which is this right here. Now if I change that to, let's say, 90% and make it a star, now you can see how much that indent has increased. You also have these options down here. You have indent and corners. If you do the indents, let's change this a little bit. Let's change this to 50%. And we'll do the indent. That's this part right here. It makes it not quite so sharp. And with corners will round out the points on the star. And if you have both of them, then you can see how it's rounded in both the indent and the points. So that's some different things that you can do with the star tool. Let's get rid of all of those because we're going to use the star tool, but we're going to use about 45 sides, and we're going to indent this about, let's go 15. Let's try 15. And I don't want any smooth indents or smooth corners, so let's see if that looks good. I'm gonna go about 10%, and we'll draw right here. And it's colored blue. That's fine. Now we want to make the black border around this. You can go up to layer styles, style settings, and you can put a stroke on it. But I'm going to show you something about this stroke. Let's put a 10 pixel black stroke on this. You can see how it's rounded out the points here. That's because, let's get that back up here. That's because we're positioning that to the outside. If we position that to the inside, now it's rounded the corners here on the indents. If you put that to the center, now it's rounding both of them. Now if that's the effect you want, that's great. Just use that because that's easy to do. I'm going to show you a trick how to get those points sharp on the inside and the outside of that starburst. I'm going to select the starburst shape. First I'm going to get rid of that effect because I don't want that. I'm going to copy that layer. So just drag it up to the new layer icon. And this bottom one, I'm going to change that to black. So let's come over here and select the default colors. That turns that to black. Select the paint bucket and click with that shape selected. Just click right there. Now we have the black one underneath the blue one. Now I'm going to select that black one and I'm going to come up here under Image, Resize, Scale. Now we can scale that a little bit. That black one. Down here, this tells you where your reference point is for the scale. If you click up here in the corner, then it will scale from this corner up here. So if I put in 105, you can see how it's scaling from that corner and going down and making it bigger down around here. So let's cancel that. If I want to scale that and make a stroke around my starburst, let's go to Scale, select the center, Click 105 and watch this. If you enlarge that a little bit, you got good points on the outside and the inside. So that's just a little trick you can use. It only works if it's exactly a circle. Other shapes don't work that way. Let me show you why. If I select an oval, let's just make an oval on here. Now let's copy that oval and color the top one blue. We'll just select this blue color and the paint bucket. Okay, now let me show you what happens when I select that oval, the black oval, and I do the same thing, resize, scale, and I go 105. You can see how it made it bigger out here on the edges than it did on the top and the bottom. Because this is a farther distance to the sides than it is to the top and the bottom, this is going to be a little bit bigger than it is there. So it only works if it's in a circle, because then you're the same distance from the center all the way around. But it's a good trick to know. Let's get rid of those two layers and let's continue with our Starburst. I want to put a drop shadow on here, so we can do that with the layer styles by selecting the black layer and going up here under layer, layer style, style settings, and selecting the drop shadow. Now we're going to make this fairly big. We're going to go 20 on the size and about 30 for the distance, and we'll leave it at 35 for the opacity. So that gives us a good shadow. And it's coming from the side and the top up here. If you move this around, you can change the direction of that shadow. We want to leave it about right up in there. That's good. And I'm going to say OK. We want to put some type in this Starburst. So let's go over to the type tool. And we've got 250 for the size. That should be fine. Right now the color is blue and we're on blue, so we need to change that. Let's change that to black. So with the type tool selected, let's click right in the Starburst and type a F. Click the check mark to OK that, and let's just drag that down a little bit. Okay, perfect. Let's put a style on that. Let's go up to layer, layer style, style settings. Let's put a drop shadow on that. Let's use the same settings that we used before. So we'll use 20 on the size, 30 on the distance. We'll leave that at 35. We're going to put a stroke on this though. So we want a white stroke to make it pop a little bit. So just click on that swatch, and to get a pure white, just click right here in this B. This is called hue, saturation, and brightness. Just select that B, which is the brightness, and click 100. That's 100% brightness, and that's solid white. You can also use these other settings right here, 255 in all three of the RGB, or FFFFFF in the hexadecimal. Either way gets you pure white. So we got a pure white stroke. Let's make it about a 10 pixel stroke. Okay, that looks good. Now we have a drop shadow on there, and we have the stroke. Let's put a little bevel on there. The bevel makes it look like it's embossed. And you can see as you take it up what it does. So we don't want to go quite that far. We'll just go about, we'll go about 50. We can just type in 50 here. And that looks okay. So click OK. Now we're going to build the ribbons. Now Photoshop Elements doesn't have the pen tool like the full version of Photoshop has. So we have to do a little workaround with that. We can do it though. So select this background because we're going to put these on a new layer. Select the new layer icon up here and click that. So we make a new layer underneath everything else. And then go over to this marquee tool. And we want the oval marquee. And we're going to draw an oval. And that's going to give us the curve of the right side of our ribbon. And you can make that as as rounded as you want, as curved as you want. I'm going to go about like, I don't know, like that. Okay, now, if you hold down the Option, or you can just click on this right here, this will subtract. We're going to subtract this side out of it so that it makes a ribbon shape. So you can just hold down the Option or the Alt if you're on a PC, and click in another oval about, we'll go about like that. From that subtracted that part of the oval. So now we have a ribbon effect. Now we need to get this bottom part looking more like a ribbon. So let's select this polygon tool right here and hold down the Option or the Alt. We're going to click on that and just drag it up and click there and maybe click there and then around, and that's going to subtract that part. Now we have a ribbon shape. Now we want to fill that with this blue color. So let's get the blue color first. If you click on that swatch, it brings up the color picker. And with the color picker open, you can just come up here and see how that eyedropper comes up. Click on that blue and it gives you the same blue color. Click OK. And now with that selected, hit Shift, Delete, or Shift Backspace, and that brings up the fill layer, and we're going to fill the layer with the foreground color, and just like that. Now we want to put the same style around it as we have everything else. Oh, but look, we have a little bit showing up here. Let's deselect that with Command D or Control D. That deselects the selection. Now for this, usually I would use a layer mask because I like to work non-destructively, but we're not ever going to need that section right up there. So I'm going to just use the eraser tool and just erase that a little bit right out of there. Okay, now with that selected, let's put the same stroke and shadow on there. Let's go to Layer, Style Settings, and we're going to give it the drop shadow, the same drop shadow. We're going to give it 20 for the size, 30 for the distance, and the opacity we'll leave the same. And the stroke, we'll put a black stroke on about, now this stroke we went 105%, so it's a little different because now we're working with pixels. So we'll just kind of eyeball it a little bit, and it looks like 16 is about right. So click OK. Now we need to copy that and have one go in this other direction. A good way to do that, or an easy way to do that, is just to make a copy of this layer. You can do that by dragging it up here to the new layer, or just hit Command J or Control J if you're on a PC, and that makes it a copy. Now you have a copy of that layer. It's copied, but they're both right on top of each other. So we want to not rotate, but flip the one so that it's angled this direction. You can do that by coming up under Image, Rotate. Now these up here will rotate the your whole artwork, your whole canvas. For example, let's just do it. This is 90% to the right. See, it moves everything 90% to the right. Command Z or Control Z to get rid of that. Okay, with this top one selected, let's go Image, Rotate. These down here will just rotate the layer. And that's what we want to do. We want to just rotate the layer. But we don't want to really rotate it. We want to flip the layer horizontally. So if we flip that layer horizontally, now we got one going this direction. Now you can select the Move tool and move it where you want it. We want it to go about like that. Let's rotate it. We can rotate it by hitting Command or Control T. And see how you get the little curved arrow on the corners? That'll rotate it. Maybe something about like that. Let's do the same thing with this bottom one. Hit Command or Control T. It's also under here under Image, Transform, Free Transform. Command T or Control T. Get the curved arrow. We can just kind of rotate that around a little bit. Maybe like that. Hit the check mark. Let's move it a little bit because they should be kind of on top of each other coming out from the starburst. Okay, something about like that. Now let's put a little bit of type in there. So select the type tool again. And this time we're going to have to be a little bit smaller. So let's try 100 point. And we want it to be black again. So click on the black and click right here and we'll just type fun. Click the check mark and we can just drag it over here. Hit Command T or Control T. We can rotate it. Put the check mark on. Let's use a warp to make that kind of angled that way. So let's go back to the type tool. Let's select this. Let's go to the warp tool and click on arc. Now we don't want it to go that way because that's the opposite way we want to go. We want it to go down a little bit, maybe like that. Click OK and click the check mark. Let's put the same layer styles on here. We can copy the styles from this F right here. So if we go up to the F layer, hold down the Option or the Alt, click on that FX, and just drag it right down here to the fun layer. That puts the same styles on the word fun as we have on this F up here. Now, even with those styles, we can still change that. Let's change that to, say, fun times. Now it's a little bit too big, so let's select all of that. Let's change this to about 60% and get the move tool, slide it down a little bit. I like that. That looks good. Okay, now we have the blue one. Let's grab all of those together and the F, grab all of those layers, and we'll just click on the create a new group. And now it's in group 1. We're going to name that F. We can move the whole thing where we want it. Now we need to make copies of that. So in order to copy that, an easy way to copy it is just take this F group, the whole group, and drag it up to the new layer icon. And we got an F copy. Now again, just like with the ribbon here, it's right on top of the other one. So we need to move that. And because it's in a group, we can just move it over. Like that. Now we need another copy. We can just copy that the same way, or we can just select it and hit Command or Control J. And we've got another copy. And we can move it. Let's move it over. Okay, now we've got our 3. Now we've got our 3 ribbons. Let's rotate these just a little bit because we're cutting off some of them. So select this one right here that's the F. This is the first one that we made. Hit Command or Control T. Let's just rotate that just a little bit to get that ribbon in here. Okay, maybe just a little bit more. Okay, we'll hit the green check mark to accept that. We'll leave that F the same. Let's go to this F, which was the top one. And let's rotate that just a little bit. And we'll rotate that the other direction. Okay, now there's a couple other things we need to do. They all say F in there, right? So let's change those. You can go down here. This is the second one, so this is this one right here. Let's click on that F and click on the type tool and select that F, and we'll just type a U. See how the layer style goes with it? Even though you change the letter, it keeps that same layer style on there. Click the check mark to accept that, and now let's go to the top one. This F right here, do the same thing, and we'll type in an N. Now let's change the name of those groups. This is the N, so we can keep them straight. This is the U. Okay, now you have the FUN. Now we need to change these colors. You can do that easily just by selecting the layers. Let's select a color. Go to the color picker. Let's select a yellow. And with the paint bucket, we can select that Starburst and click on that with the paint bucket. We can select this ribbon, click on that with the paint bucket, select that ribbon, click on that with the paint bucket, and there's our yellow one. Now we need a red one. So let's go back to the color picker, select a red, click OK. Let's go down here to the F, select the Starburst layer. We still have the paint bucket, so just click on that Starburst. Let's select the two ribbon layers and paint them red as well. Okay, and there you go. Now you can bring a background, any background you want into that. Let's bring this background. Let's collapse all of these layers. Now if you move them, you can select this move tool up here. Select what group you want, and you can move them around anywhere you want. You can change the order. If you want this yellow one to be on top, just grab this whole group with the U and drag it up to the top. And now it's on top of the N. You can do anything you want that way. If you want to move them all, if you're fine with it the way it is and you want to move them all at the same time, just select all three and put them in another group. Name that group Fun. And now you can move them all as a group anywhere you want. So that's how you can build this graphic from scratch. And you can use that anytime. You can use these same principles to build other graphics as well. Just remember, we don't have the pen tool, so you just have to use the marquee tool to get your shapes that you want. And you can subtract or add to the shapes to get the shapes you want for these ribbons. You can change the colors. We've changed the colors. We've added layer styles. We've changed type. We've changed the color. So you can do all kinds of things. So continue to practice. Have fun. That's what it's all about. Having fun. Don't get discouraged. Keep learning. And I have a cheat sheet that I'm going to put in the description below that you can download that will kind of go over the steps we use to make these. I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.